Now, I recently made a video about my top 5 recommended carry guns. Today I want to tell you about 5 that I recommend the least to people or don't recommend at all for one reason or another. Let's get to the table and let me tell you about these 5. Now, make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'm not only going to tell you one that may surprise you that I recommend more often than not, especially if you're familiar with my channel. You might be like, holy crap, really? But there's one here that has become a trust issue for me personally because of a couple different issues. We'll talk about that near the end of the video too, so make sure you stick around for the entire video. Now let's get to the first gun I want to bring up and that I don't recommend really at all. Now, when it comes to 1911 style guns, if that's what you like and that's what you're going to carry, go for it. It is a well-built gun. One thing you'll notice though, in the 938, they're expensive. I think I paid 700, maybe even 800 bucks for this specific one. This is the Spartan 2. And of course they have the Legion 938 and all of that kind of stuff, right? It's 17 ounces. The height is like 4.3 ounces. So as far as a carry gun, size, weight, and all of that is pretty good. Capacity, it's lacking though. That's a good little shooter though, man. The P938, it's not heavy either. They use like that mixture aluminum alloy frame, but it's only 7 rounds. You have 7 rounds. This is kind of like a first gen carry gun, if you will, where the capacity, they were obviously single stacks, but still thin, light, and concealable. And that gun is all of these things. But not only is the capacity lacking compared to modern or second gen carry guns like the Shield Plus, which is 10 with the flush base plate, right? But also the controls. So if you're going to carry this gun with a round in the chamber, you have to carry it with that safety engaged. Now there will be people, even in the comment section of this video, that swear up and down, they don't mind practicing. They say that safety will not be a hindrance to them in a self-defense situation. And who am I to say otherwise? Maybe they're right, maybe they do. But at the same time, remembering to hit that safety in a stressful situation where things are happening very quickly is not something I want to have to be worrying about. With modern guns, like again, the Shield Plus, they can be carried safely without the need of an external safety. Now, of course, you can get this gun with or without a safety, but the point is with striker blocks, drop safe technologies and stuff like that, it allows you to carry guns just like this. And what happens if I have to pull this out of my holster and use it in self-defense? I don't have to think about any of that. I can just pull the trigger and, obviously the goal is to protect myself. With this, there's more involvement. Now, that does not negate the fact that you have to train with any of these guns, whether it's practicing on holstering or dry firing or live fire, but still that's one extra step, one extra thing that I don't want to have to worry about in a self-defense situation. So overall, the cost, lacking in capacity, and the manual of arms keep me from recommending this gun. So I did some digging and I was able to find the fossilized remains of a couple of extinct carry guns. That's the M&P 9 subcompact and the CZ P10S. So these are a part of the same guns in like the, think HK VP9SK, even Glock 26 to some extent, where it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy these guns when you have most of these companies making the same gun, but lighter, thinner, and sometimes with more capacity. Let me explain. We'll bring out the Shield Plus once again, right? Now the M&P 9 subcompact, I believe, is 25.6 ounces. I don't know what that's why that's in my head, but let's check it. Let's check the weight. We're all zeroed out. M&P 9 compact, 1.8 ounces. The Shield Plus, 1.4 ounces. So you got a 1/4 pound difference there. That's a pretty big deal when you're talking about inside the waistband. Now, not only is it the weight part of this, but also the width of the guns as well. Shield Plus over here, 9 subcompacts over here, right? That's what's actually going to stick out in your pants if we're talking about inside the waistband carry. Well, you might be thinking, well, this one has to have more capacity then, right? And you're right. It's 2 more rounds. But what you get for that 2 more rounds is a gun that is almost the same length. I think it's maybe 1/10 of an inch shorter than the Shield Plus. So you have a bigger, heavier gun with a little bit more capacity. Now, it used to be one of the, specifically with the M&P series, because you could interchange the magazines, very similar to Glock, that gave this a distinct advantage, that it could use those full-size 17-round mags and even 15-round mags. But Smith & Wesson has come out with their own 10, 13, 15-round options, and you still keep the thinness and how light this gun actually is. Now, I know on paper they say this gun is like, what, 19 ounces? And I want to say this one's like 25 ounces. So I thought there was a bigger difference there than what there actually is on the scale that I have. Regardless, these thicker, double stack, compact type of guns are just, like I said, becoming extinct as the years go on and as the technology gets better and better, where you can have a smaller, lighter gun and all of this stuff that we just talked about. Now, one thing you will be missing that these guns generally have is the ability to change the back straps, but even then, you have guns like the MC9 that give you that option as well. So overall, these guns in this range, not just these two, but these double stack compacts that have more weight and all that kind of stuff, are becoming more extinct as we go on and as the years pass by. So, for that reason alone, I very rarely will recommend these guns. Most people want convenience when they're carrying a gun, and I understand that. You know, it becomes a balancing point where I don't think the lightest gun out there is the best carry gun, but I also don't think that you have to be carrying a 40-ounce, you know, 1911 with 15 additional mags on you is necessary either. You know, it becomes a balancing act at that point. Speaking of the lightest gun ever, let's talk about the DB9. For deep pocket rocket concealment in a 9mm, the DB9 has been a relatively good option, but honestly, as time has passed on, we've got some better options, more capacity. This one has kind of fallen by the wayside, and this one really is too small in a potent 9mm round. You get front and rear slide serrations, you get a decent set of sights. I just think Diamondback, if they were to redesign this whole gun, make it into a half stack or maybe even a small double stack type of setup to be competable or to be comparable to your MC9s, your P365s, all of those guns like that, I think they would have a real winner as long as it's reliable as this one has been. Because like I said, I haven't had any issues that I can think of out of this gun. The trigger sucks though. It is a small, snappy little gun. And it's designed for close quarters, keep somebody off of you. And I totally understand that. So the amount of recoil and stuff is not going to be a hindrance, hopefully, you know, if somebody's right on top of you. But at the end of the day, your carry gun needs to be the one you shoot the most, and I can't think of anybody that really enjoys shooting, you know, this gun and is going to want to practice with this gun. It's just too small, and for that reason alone, coupled with the 6 rounds in the magazine, I never recommend this gun to anybody. Another Sig made the list. Now, I love Sig Sauer, and this is one that I do love and I do carry, but I just don't recommend it all that often. Now, this is the Spectra Comp, the P365 Spectra Comp. My first introduction to the P365 was the original, and then I got the XL. And so this is a 12 round gun, and I still stand by this. This is one of the best feeling guns and most natural shooting guns out there, with the best set of pistol sights in my opinion. So they took that concept and they started integrating the comp built onto the gun. It's milled onto the gun. It's a part of the slide, so you don't have to screw anything on. You don't have to worry about it walking off or anything like that, which is a great concept because it does keep that muzzle down, you know, compared to some of the other guns in this category, making it a flatter shooter and more enjoyable shooting gun. This is from the Sig Custom Works, so they have their slide serrations. It's optics ready. It's got the gold TIN barrel and trigger in there. This thing is tricked out. It's got the LXG laser engraved grip, 12 round mags. Of course, it's compatible with the X Macro as well. It's just incredible. What's also incredible is the price. So, you know, I've found that most people, when it comes to concealed carry, they want to be in that mid $500 range or less, right? And $500 is nothing to sneeze at. But at the same time, they don't want to be spending $1,200. And so the cost on this one, do I think it's justified for what you get? No. I think if it was $800 or $900 max, I think, you know, at that point, for sure, it is something at that point I'd be like, okay, man, they've put a lot into this gun. When you start talking about $1,200, man, that eliminates a lot of people, especially when you're talking about a carry gun. People start to kind of back away from that, okay? So it's not one that I recommend solely for that reason. Again, I carry it because I love this setup. You know, we carry a gun with the hopes of never having to use it, but if we have to, that's what we'll do. And what I'm trying to get at here is a lot of people will say, oh, well, I don't want that gun taken from me if, you know, in evidence and all this kind of stuff. Well, make sure you have backup or a concealed carry insurance. A lot of those plans, a lot of those good companies will reimburse you for your gun there if it gets taken into evidence. So there are some ways around that. But at the end of the day, if I'm out $1,200 but I'm alive, that's all I'm concerned with, okay? But for $500, sometimes $400, there's some options out there that I recommend more, way more than what I recommend this gun, simply because of the price. Now, there is a gun that I do recommend to more people than what some of y'all may like to believe, and that is the Glock 43X. Now, I want to throw this in here as a caveat to the last gun, because the faults I see in the 43X are very well known. I've said them in reviews that I've done of this gun when I did a revisit of this gun, trying to give it a fair shake. The sights suck. The trigger is not like a standard 19, 26, whatever number you want to throw in there. It is not consistent with the other Glocks. Looks consistent with the other Glocks, but it's not. It doesn't shoot like them, and it's not just the thinness of the gun. It is that trigger. It just doesn't shoot as good as those others. And also, it's kind of long. I mean, for what you get, if we take just, you know, the Shield Plus, both of these being 10 rounds, by the way, you know, normally Glock, which is on the bottom, they are almost unmatched when it comes to size, weight, and capacity. But for some reason, the 43X, they decided to go way longer than what's necessary. Now, that works for you in a way because you do get a full-size grip on the gun. But I think it's unnecessarily long. If we take something even like the MC9, which is not as proven, in my opinion, as the 43X, but just size-wise, check that out. So I think it's unnecessarily long. I hate the sights, and I don't like the trigger on the gun. But if somebody comes to me and they're like really brand specific, and they're like, hey man, I carry a 19, I like Glocks a lot, what do you think? You know, 26 or a 43X? Generally speaking, I tend to lean towards the 43X, although the 26 is still just one of those guns that is still, you know, in my opinion, probably top 10 in carry guns, because it has literally stood the test of time, and that is in big part to the height of the gun. It is relatively short, so it's pretty easy to carry. It's great as far as the size, weight, and capacity. But I tend to lean towards the 43X, It is smaller, lighter, right, and all that kind of stuff. Although you don't get the mag compatibility, it's still pretty decent. And I believe in Glock. I trust Glocks, you know, except for the 47, which we reviewed. I still got to run some more rounds and make sure that that gun is good. But up to this point, Glocks have been reliable for me, and I have no problem recommending them to somebody that is very brand specific. I do recommend this more than this last gun for sure, which I don't think I've recommended not one time. And one of the biggest disappointments, what I kind of preluded to in the beginning, the Ruger Max 9. Now, let me just go back a little bit. When we did the review on the LC9S, that was one of my favorite carry guns from what I call the first gen carry guns, which are those, you know, the original PPS, the Shield, the XDS, the PPS M2, the LC9S. You know, that gun was incredible, man. But the problem is, they didn't really change a whole lot. So you have basically the same trigger, which is decent, but it's not great. You have an upgraded sight system, blacked out on the rear. You have a tritium front there with the fiber optic as well, so you kind of get the best of both worlds there. Seemingly, you'll notice that too. I don't know what's going, you see that? It's almost like the gun locks into place. I don't know what's going on. But that's not the only issue that I've started to notice with this thing over time. And I did mention that, you know, these are carry guns that I trust. I think that I trust Ruger so much that I just want to look at this gun as an anomaly. I don't know how many people are having issues with these things, but also the magazine release. So I still have to send this back to Ruger. I've been kind of dragging my feet on it, other things that I've had to get done. But regardless, the magazine release is not engaging like you want it to, right? You want that magazine to at least start to fall when you press in the button. It's not even doing that. Now, I can rip that mag out of there, and so I don't know if it's the spring or whatnot, but it's locking in place just fine. But again, it is not releasing out of the gun the way it should be. No what's going on with it, but it seems to be working fine now. It's just something I noticed, like, man, sometimes it doesn't want to pull back to the rear. So, you know, I'm not really sure that this is something I would recommend ever, man. I think the biggest thing is it just, compared to some of these others, I have no reason to recommend this. You have guns like the GX4, which are about the same price. Now, granted, I like Ruger more than I like Taurus, but the GX4 I haven't had any of these kind of issues with. So it's just one of those things I really need to stop dragging my feet, send it back to Ruger, re-review it, get it up to 1,000 rounds, and that is something that I seriously need to work on. But I am not impressed with the Max 9. And this is something I hate saying because, again, I love Ruger and I love most of what they do. But the Max 9 just does not do it for me, so I do not recommend it, ever. So those are my carry guns, and those are the ones that I don't recommend. I'd love to hear some of the ones that you don't recommend. Like when somebody brings up a certain gun, you know, you're like, dude, don't go that route, go this route. Because that's the way I try to approach it. Even if they come to me with an idea in their head that I don't agree with, I try to lead them in a better direction. Because if somebody's talking about concealed carry, that's a good thing. I don't want to discourage them. I want to try to lead them in the best direction that I possibly can. And so that's what this is all about. Big thanks to you guys. If you want to support what I do, you can do that by subscribing to the channel right here. Hit your notification bell. Drop me a comment on the video. Drop me a like on the video. Share it with your friends, all that good stuff. Hey, and if you want to see your name at the end of the video in this cool special outro we have, you can join us on Patreon or join the channel right here. Big thanks again. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.